migrant crisis. And just a day after James Cleverly said he wanted to reduce the number of small boat arrivals to zero by the end of 2024, it's emerged that Channel migrant crossings are likely to increase this year. The number of arrivals last year fell to below 30,000, but Border Force officials have told the government that they expect around 35,000 migrants to cross the Channel in 2024. It could be as high as 50,000, in fact. And the warning comes as Nigel Farage hit out at the government for granting asylum to so many people last year.
I wonder, is Rich's solution for pretty much everyone to stay? Is that how we clear the backlog? Is that how we deal with the problem? Would welcome your thoughts on that rather sarcastic question, although I don't think I'm wrong. So the whole thing is driving me bonkers. It would also appear that 17,000 people have simply disappeared. Just disappeared. I can only guess they've joined criminal gangs or whatever else it may be. But what is for certain is that this whole issue of illegal immigration and legal immigration is rapidly climbing up towards the top of the list of political priorities in this country, as I always thought it would.
OK, well, let's get the Tory reaction to those comments. And I'm joined now by David Jones, who's the Conservative Party MP. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on the show. So we just heard there from Nigel Farage in typical flamboyant form. But of course, James Cleverly this week has committed to that target of zero arrivals. And yet Border Force now saying numbers likely to go up to 35,000 or even as high as 50,000. Spells disaster for that pledge, doesn't it?
Well, you're quite right. This is probably the most important issue that I get raised with me in my constituency postbag, at least the most important national issue. And it's got to be addressed. And the best means of addressing it, I believe, is the Rwanda bill, which was introduced just before Christmas, coming back to the Commons for its committee stage later on this month. And we, and by we, I mean I and colleagues, are working with the government to try to improve that bill, to make it even tighter, to provide a real disincentive to people from coming into this country. Because Nigel is absolutely right. This is probably the top political issue that people are talking about at the moment.
And David, Rwanda or bust, it would seem. We found out yesterday there won't be a vote on that this week now. Already that's being stymied. Do you think that's your only way out of this mess? If we can't stop the boats, then we need to get the people out to Rwanda. And if that doesn't work, it really is going to be a disastrous start to the year.
Well, Martin, it's not being stymied. I don't know whether you watched the second reading debate, but in fact, the government undertook to work with Conservative colleagues to try to improve the bill. There are one or two issues that need to be tightened up. But I do actually believe that the Rwanda bill will be a massive disincentive to people who want to come to this country illegally. If they want to come to this country without good reason, if they're not proper asylum seekers, then they must expect not to stay in this country. And the threat of actually having to be taken to Rwanda, I think, will be pretty powerful to stop them from coming.
OK, David, you heard what Nigel had to say earlier. Richard Tice was saying that only the Reform Party can save Britain. Yesterday, I was joined in the studio by your party Deputy Chairman, Lee Anderson. He said this.
Yes, I can understand why some of our voters are a little bit frustrated and angry, especially with the migration, the illegal and the legal migration. But reform is not the answer. It leaves the door open for Sir Keir Starmer to get in number 10 and undo all the hard work we've tried to do so far.
So what do you say to that, David? Reform is not the answer.
Look, I've worked very closely with both Nigel Farage and Richard Tice during the Leave Means Leave campaign. I know them well. I respect them both. They're both important people in the politics of this country, and they both have the well-being of this country at heart. The fact is, however, that what Lee said yesterday is absolutely right. If we want to fragment the right-wing vote, if we want to fragment the pro-Brexit vote, we will certainly end up with a Labour government. It's as simple as that. And I actually believe that the right is stronger when it's working together. And I would invite Nigel and Richard to think very carefully about the future and whether or not they wouldn't be better off with a good, strong Conservative majority at the next general election.
But David, Richard Tice has ruled out there'll be no deals this time. Nigel also saying that the standing down of Brexit Party candidates last year handed you an 80-seat majority. Today they said Brexit has been squandered, immigration has been betrayed. No deals on the table this time. A lot of people saying that you guys have had your chance to cut down immigration. You've had your chance to turn things around, and it hasn't worked. So why should people stand aside this time? Why should people give the Conservatives another chance?
Well, look, I've been around in politics a long time, and I've seen insurgent parties come and go over the years. The fact is, there are two parties of power in this country, and that's the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. And all the other parties do is to nibble away at the edges of the votes of both of those parties. You had an item on the Lib Dems a few moments ago, and they will do pretty much the same. But the fact is that when we approach a general election, people will be thinking very carefully about what's best for them and their families and for the country as a whole. And I actually think that people will consider whether or not Reform have a chance of winning. I think that they will conclude that despite their good intentions, they won't, and that they will look very carefully at what the Conservative Party has to offer. The issue of the general election date is important too, of course. There are suggestions that it might be in May. I don't believe that's the case. The Conservatives at the moment are polling some 20 points behind the Labour Party. We've got a lot happening in the next 8 or 9 months that might well change that arithmetic considerably, not least the budget on the 6th of March, but also if in fact the election is to be in the autumn, and Isaac Levido, the party's campaign manager, has said it's going to be on November the 14th, there is the potential for a second budget this year. And these can change things considerably.
OK, thank you very much. I'm afraid we have to leave it there. David Jones, the Conservative MP for Clwyd West, thanks for joining us.